discuss nothing less than the question how to organize the global transport transformation. And this covers two essential questions. The first one is what does it actually take to decarbonize the transport sector? And the second, how can we shape this transformation in a manner that it still contributes to reducing poverty and to sustainable economic development at its best? And we will explore those questions with two excellent speakers that I have today with me here, and whom I will introduce you after a short technical introduction as well. If you believe that today's topic is yet a little bit comprehensive and policy oriented, there is no need to worry, because in the future we plan to conduct at least one webinar per month with a much stronger practical focus. So to give you a little bit of a taste, we have topics like cycling highways, electric buses, new mobility service, and comprehensive finance for sustainable transport on our list. So before we start, a short technical introduction. This is the control panel that you should see as an attendee here. You are muted from the beginning so that we have no interferences. I hope that everybody can listen and understand us well. In the case you have some problems, I recommend you to check out the sound check in the upper right corner. During the discussion later on, you have the possibility to raise questions to our panelists today. And we had very good experiences with raising those questions, collecting them via the chat function in the down right corner. However, if you would like to elaborate your question or your input via microphone, you can also indicate this to me in the chat function, and I will unlock your microphone later on. So, but let us already start. I have today with me here from Bonn, Ms. Tanja Rödiger-Vorwerk, who is the Deputy Director General for Environment and Infrastructure at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. Tanja is a passionate forespeaker for the urgent need of transforming the global energy and transport system. She has proven this, for example, by paving the way for the transformative urban mobility initiative, which has been launched at the Habitat 3 conference in Quito. After studying law at the universities of Freiburg and Munich, she has earned her PhD in European environmental law. Before her current position, she was also heading the South Asia division and other departments at BMZ. Further, she was a deputy head for the Department of International Affairs and Protocol of the city of Bonn, as well as she was working as a senior consultant at the International Management Consultancy. Our second speaker today is Christian Hochfeld. He's the director of the Agora Transport Transformation in Germany, which he will later on tell us more about. Christian is not only an esteemed former GIZ colleague who has worked as program director at GIZ in China, which I would say is one of the most exciting testing labs for the global transport transformation at the moment. But he was also a member of the management team of the ECO Institute, a German research institute for applied studies for ecology until 2010. However, Think Global and Act Local is Christian's everyday business since February 2016, and with the Agora, he and his colleagues serve as intermediaries between policy, businesses, and civil society when it comes to discussing straightforward about the transport transformation. And today, Christian will give us detailed insights about the challenges of the transport transformation in Germany and outline in a comprehensive manner the way that is ahead of us. Okay, so long talk from my side. Later on we will have a bit of room for a short discussion. I will hand over now to Ms. Vorwerk. She will now briefly elaborate why and how the German Development Corporation plans to support the global transport transformation and to take it a little bit in advance. This includes mobilizing large-scale finance for sustainable transport infrastructures and empowering the relevant change makers. So this webinar series is actually an integral part of our capacity development offers, which we plan to extend in the next months and years. So Ms. Vorwerk, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to welcome you at the first webinar that we are organizing under the umbrella of the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, and I'd like to explain more about the TUMI later. If you have ever visited Germany, you will find well-functioning public transport in cities and metropolitan regions and many bicycle and pedestrians on our cities. But what you also find is still an enormous number of cars driven by fossil fuels. I believe that the transformation of Germany's transport sector has just begun, and we still will have a long way to go. Therefore, I'm delighted to be on virtual stage with Christian Hochfeld as Director of Agora Transport Transition, a think tank that will accompany the mobility transformation in Germany. When reflecting on the global challenge that transport plays in terms of climate change, to create low carbon, efficient and inclusive transport systems, only with cities we will succeed in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement and the new urban agenda. Next, please. Let me just illustrate why we need, why we need a transformation in the urban transport sector with two numbers. Firstly, adding to the almost 4 billion urban residents today, there will be 6 billion people living in cities by 2050. And secondly, at the same time, the number of cars worldwide is expected to double or even triple by 2050. Next, please. When we look at the effects of our current patterns of mobility, it becomes clear that we cannot afford to continue with business as usual. In terms of environment, transport causes 27% of global energy-related climate emissions. Urban travel is responsible for about the half of these emissions. In terms of social inclusion, let me give you the example of Windhoek in Namibia. Half the population spends more than 25% of their income on transport. In Bonn, 25% of the income spent on transport would mean to spend 25 euros for an inner city bus trip. Incredible. Next, please. In terms of health, there are 1.3 million people road fatalities each year, and 500 children die in traffic every single day. So that means one jumbo set of children dying in an accident every day. I don't even count the numbers people left with lifelong injury, on the further 3 million who die early due to air pollution. In terms of economy, congestion blocks economic development means, for example, in Cairo, traffic jams cost $8 billion annually, or in other numbers, 4 points of Egypt's total GDP. Also, the only alternative for many people to private and public transport is walking or cycling, but often walkways are non-existent. This loss of options results in fewer opportunities to find jobs. Companies have limited access to workforce and production inputs, and market can only be supplied at very high costs. Next, please. This is why Germany cooperates with partner countries all over the world to make transport and mobility more sustainable. The German Development Cooperation relies, amongst other partners, on the GIZ and KfW for realizing global support programs in the transport sector. KfW finances investments to build, modernize and augment sustainable mobility infrastructure. GIZ supports cities to plan and implement sustainable mobility concepts through policy advisory services, tailor-made capacity development formats, city-to-city learning, and knowledge exchange like this today. Next, please. On the next slide here, you can see some examples of our technical cooperation projects. For example, we support partner countries in developing urban mobility strategies and national urban transport policies to provide access to safe, affordable, energy efficient and reliable mobility options. But we also support the development of innovative infrastructure projects, such as the preparation of a bicycle highway in Bogota or an electric bus corridor in Mexico City. Through the financial cooperation, we finance large-scale projects in the field of public transport, cycling, and pedestrian infrastructure. In the last years, we achieved a considerable shift away from classical road infrastructure projects towards sustainable transport infrastructure. Next, please. And we are increasing our engagement. At the Habitat 3 conference in Quito in October 2016, last year, we have signed a joint declaration together with some partners like UN Habitat, ADB, CAF, KfW, ITDP, GIZ, SLOCAT, ICLEI, and C40. Jointly, we launched the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, we call it the TUMI, to support sustainable mobility worldwide. Next, please. With TUMI and together with our partners, we help to create, first, accessible cities where transport systems serve economic development and prosperity. Second, healthy and clean cities which provide a high quality of life. Third, cities where all population groups can participate in social life because they have access to reliable, affordable, and safe mobility. And fourth, cities where the climate impact of urban transport is as low as possible. Next. TUMI will focus on implementing urban mobility on the ground, building the capacity of local decision makers and experts, and supporting pilot measures, especially in medium-sized cities. We will work with 1,000 change makers in an ambitious training initiative and support key change makers, leaders in their transformation processes. We will implement pilot projects which emphasize the potential of innovation for transformation in cities, and last but not least, we will mobilize at least €1 billion per year for investments in sustainable infrastructure through the KfW and join forces in cooperation with other donors. Next. So I'm very happy to be part of this first webinar today. Thank you very much for your attention. And now let's hear what Christian Hochfeld has to say on the transformation of Germany's transport system.
Yes, many thanks, Ms. Vorberg, for your deep insights into the perspective of the German Development Corporation at the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. And I will quickly swift over the presenter to Christian Hochfeld, who should now have the control to share his presentation with us. Christian, I think your microphone is yet muted, so we can't listen to you. Can't hear you. Okay, before beginning, I would quickly introduce again to the input from Christian. So one thing in advance, so we don't have yet a generally agreed action plan and action strategy on how to achieve the decarbonization and the transport sector transformation in Germany. But with the Climate Protection Plan 2050, we have for the first time set an objective to to reduce greenhouse gases by 80 to 95% until 2050, and this covers further a particular target for reducing greenhouse gases in the transport sector until 2030 by about 40%. And how this may become reality, because we face a lot of different challenges with achieving this, Christian will now elaborate it. So Christian, the word would be yours. I can't yet see your screen, but please give me a second, please. Christian, are you sharing your screen with us?
Yes. I should do it right now.
Yes. Perfect. There it comes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Matthias, and thank you very much, Dr. Rüdiger Vorwerk, for the introduction already. And it's my great pleasure and honor today to share some of the status and perspectives of the decarbonization of the German transport sector, called the transportation transformation in Germany, over the next minutes, and to introduce a little bit what Agora transport transformation contributes to this. First of all, let me give you a little bit of a background which has already been stressed. At the end of 2015, we reached the Paris Agreement on climate change, which is for the first time ever a universal legally binding global climate deal, which has the ambition to keep the increase of the average temperature, the average global temperature, below or well below 2 degrees, with a vision to keep it well below 1.5 degrees the increase, which means not more or not less than an extensive decarbonization of our economies. And this also stresses very much the urgency for drastic emission reductions also in the transport sector. For Germany, which has an overarching climate goal already, which has been agreed prior to the Paris Agreement, of reducing emissions compared to 1990 by 80 to 95% until 2050, that means that we have to reach rather the higher target, the upper target, the 95% emission reduction, which means that every energy-related emissions have to be zero in 2050. And this is a very big challenge for the transport sector, as in the past there was not a big contribution of the transport sector to this climate targets. But to stay a little bit about the motivation and the ambition of Germany is that we have to see that Germany is one of the leading countries if it comes to mobility technologies and organizing transport and mobility. If we won't be able to decarbonize the transport sector until 2050, there will be hardly any other country meeting this target. And that means that we will be unable to reach the global goal, and that will mean that climate change will take place, and that climate change will be, very, very hard. And it's unbelievable that we have existing and well-functioning transport system in Germany or in other countries in the world where climate change takes place and where the consequences of climate change will be disastrous in a way that we will not be able to keep the higher temperatures and the increase of temperature well below 2 degrees. So, I mean, this shows very much that there is a strong need to reach this decarbonizations and to increase the ambition of reducing the CO2 emissions. And against this background, the Agora Transforming Transportation has been founded. Agora stands for a forum. It's a Greek word for forum. So it's a platform for the decarbonization of the transport sector, which in Germany is called Verkehrswende. This is a German word which is not internationally known as Energiewende, the decarbonization of the energy sector, which already made it to an, as a German word to international level. But as Mrs. Vorwerk already said, there is, we are only at the very beginning. And in this sense, there's also, the Verkehrswende not well known in English on an international level. This initiative of Agora has been initiated by two philanthropies. Stiftung Mercator Foundation, a huge German foundation which is related or which works a lot in the field of climate change, and the European Climate Foundation, which is a foundation of other international foundations, mainly from the US, also very much engaged in climate protection. They both formed this initiative, which is organized as a think tank, on the one hand, accompanied by a council of the Agora, which I will also introduce a little later. The starting phase is over the next 2 years still, but it's to be seen that we will not be able to make the transport transformation done until the end of 2018. So there's a huge relevance even beyond this, and this initiative will also work beyond 2018. The mission is to work on the transport decarbonization until 2050, and the focus is very much currently based on the national land transport in Germany in the European context. We work in the following way, that we provide this platform and as a think tank work on analysis, on fact-finding, on creating study and project where new knowledge is needed to negotiate the way forward, the strategies for decarbonizing the transport sector. To open the door for deeper decarbonization of transport against the background that we had, not big success up to now to decrease the CO2 emissions in the transport sector in Germany. The second thing is that we have to negotiate, or will negotiate, this knowledge between the main stakeholders in the field of transport. And they are accompanying the think tank in the council of the Agora. This council is currently led by Achim Steiner, the former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and former Executive Director of the United Nations Environmental Programme. Due to his new appointment as a Director of the United Nations Development Programme, his position may change in the future, but currently he's still our chair of this council. This council brings together the units from the European Commission working on transport. We are accompanied by now 5 ministries, national ministries on a state secretary level, which is the Ministry for Transport, Environment, Economy and Energy, the Foreign Office, and we are very happy also to have the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development on board. We also have ministers from our federal states, we have mayors from our cities, and we have the parliamentary groups, the main parliamentary groups represented in the council. From the policy side, this is due to the fact that the responsibilities for transport, and especially for decarbonizing transport, are spread over the level of the European Union, the national level, the federal level, and the city level. We have also representatives from the main stakeholder groups in the economy sector, the automotive industry, the logistics industry, the technology suppliers, the rail for sure, and also for public transport providers. All are represented on a very high level here. Finally, we have the science and the civil society on board. On the one hand, by environmental NGOs, labor unions, but on the other hand, also consumer protection groups and associations, car clubs, and the car club from Germany. For a full list of the members, you can also visit our website. As I mentioned, the role of this council is, on the one hand, to advise the think tank on, where are the areas to work on, and on the other hand, to negotiate some of the results from the think tank to see what can be the right policy recommendations to our German government. And if it comes to the German government, as Matthias already introduced, we didn't have any official goals in the field of decarbonizing transport until the end of last year. But for the COP22 in Marrakesh at the end of last year, Germany prepared the Climate Protection Plan 2050, which for the first time ever in history includes a sector-specific goal of decarbonizing transport in the future. And it's a very ambitious goal. I have to say it's very ambitious for a couple of reasons. For the first reason is that from 1990 until 2015, we haven't seen any reduction in CO2 emissions in the transport sector in Germany. So there was a kind of flat emissions by 160 million tons of CO2. We were able to decouple the growth of transport volume from the growth of the emissions, but we were not able to come to absolute reduction in the last 25 years. So having a goal of reducing 40 to 42% from today until 2030 is a very ambitious target, and it's would mean that all the stakeholders have to work on this ambitious target and have to, collaborate. Otherwise, we will not be able to meet this target, this middle-term target, the long-term target, which is also be defined in this Climate Protection Plan 2050, is to decarbonize transport until 2050. So that we have hardly any emissions from the transport sector remaining over the year of 2050. The good thing is that, differently to the discussions and developments in the past years, we have now enabled we have enablers like technologies on the one side, and also a change of behaviors in Germany, which already is starting, which would allow us to reach this target of reducing the emissions by 40 to 42% in the next years until 2030, and then come to total decarbonization until 2050. But, as Matthias said, that is not now really a strategy on a national level. It's the start of discussion to have these targets, which have now been put into a strategy, which means that we also have to see what are the policy instruments, what are the technologies which will lead us to the emission reductions over the next 15 and then the next 35 years. We as Agora put together not a strategy now or a final strategy, but as we call it, a map and a compass to do this transformation of transport in 12 insights on the transforming transportation in Germany. Unfortunately, it's only now available in German, but it will very soon be available also in English, and then you can download it from our website. It includes the general perspective and the general way how to decarbonize transport in the future. And this graph shows a little bit that the transformation of the transport sector is even more complex than the energy transition. Why? Because if we talk about the energy transition in Germany, which is quite successful already, there is no difference for the end consumers regarding the quality of the product. So electricity will be, or will mean the same light in your room, will mean the same heating in your room, no matter if the energy is coming from coal, from nuclear power, or from renewables. But if we would like to make the transport transformation happen, there will be also the need for a transformation and for change in behavior, in our transport behavior. Otherwise, we will not be able to decarbonize transport. So we need two pillars for the transformation of the transport sector. On the one hand, what we call the mobility revolution, which reduces the energy consumption of the German transport sector based on avoid, shift, and improve. This is also the concept which is very much driven by GIZ and the German Development Corporation. This is to bring down the emissions by about 50%. That show all the scenarios we have that this is possible. But it's also needed on the one hand to then on the other hand have the energy transition in the transport sector, which covers the remaining energy demand of the German transport sector with renewable energy. If we see the current energy demand in transport in Germany, we can see that the energy demand is so high that we would not be able to cover this energy demand with renewable energies in the future, because we have a limited access, and energy from renewable energies or from renewable sources are still scarce over the next 30-40 years. And as Mrs. Vorwerk already introduced, if we comes to the mobility revolution, this is something which already started or is about to start in the cities around the world, and this is also the truth in Germany. The reason and the background is that we still have, on the one hand, the public transport as a backbone of urban transport, but we have more and more also new mobility services, sharing services like car sharing and ride sharing, which enables the people to be less dependent on their private owned cars. So we will have fewer cars in the cities, leaving more space for other land use, and we have more space for other modes of transport, which are currently suppressed by the infrastructure for road transport or for private cars. We have more space for walking and cycling with high benefits for the cities and at lowest cost for the urban development. So what we see is that not only in countries all over the world, but also in Germany, that the mayors and the cities need more support to do this mobility revolution and to succeed with this mobility revolutions in the cities, and to get less dependent on private cars with a lot of co-benefits, not only in space but also for less congestion, higher safety, road safety, less emissions and less noise, which makes the cities as a winner of the mobility revolution. The current system of public transport, together with walking and cycling, will be, together with the new sharing systems, what we call the mobility alliance of the future in the cities, which is very promising, not only for the decarbonization of transport, but with increasing the livability and the quality of life in the cities. And that this is not only something which will come from the developed countries or from countries like Germany can be shown as from one example, which is bike sharing in China, which is really, popping up immensely. We currently have 500,000 shared bikes in Beijing, which transform the mobility behavior of the people in Beijing to an extent which nobody was aware of, because over the last 20 years the share of biking decreased from 2/3 to only 10% in the past, and now within 1 year that changes dramatically. And this shows that not only countries all over the world can learn from what happens in Germany, but the other way around, Germany can also have or can also learn from other countries all over the world. That means that the transport transformation needs more and more also cooperation on the international level to reach the joint targets. We are talking also about autonomous vehicles at the moment, very much as a technology and also as a driver for and an enabler for this transformation of the transport sector. But the results up to now show that only if this autonomous vehicles in the future will be also shared vehicles, then this will also be beneficial for the transformation of the transport sector by reducing the space for transport and also reducing the emissions, especially if these cars are also driven not on fossil fuels but on electricity. And that brings me to the second pillar of the of the transformation of the transport sector, to the energy transition in transport. We have to overcome, to be decarbonized, the use of fossil fuels in the transport sector, and there we have 4 options. We have biofuels and power generated fuels. I will explain this a little bit deeper. If we still use internal combustion engines with a lower rate of efficiency, and we have the chance to switch to electric mobility, so battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles on the one hand, and fuel cell vehicles driven by hydrogen on the other hand, as alternative propulsion systems, which will also be more efficient in the use of electricity or energy from renewables. If we talk about power generated fuels, or let's see the efficiency of those 4 technology options, we can see that the battery electric vehicles and the direct use of electricity is the most efficient way. For 1 kilometer we need around 15 kilowatt hours of energy compared to 103 kilowatt hours of energy from renewables if we need or use power generated fuels. And the other options like hydrogen or fuel cell electric vehicles with hydrogen and combustion engines with synthetic gas are in between. But this shows that due to the fact that we have limited access to renewables over the next years, and that won't change in the world, that we have to use battery electric vehicles and the direct use of electricity wherever possible to be able to feed the transport system with renewable energies. I was explaining the power generated fuels, and this is a new concept, so I would like to explain this a little bit more in detail, very briefly, that power-based fuels work in a way that you generate electricity from renewables, then you have an electrolysis producing hydrogen, and this hydrogen can be transferred with CO2 from the air, so this is then carbon neutral, to on the one hand gaseous or liquid fuels, which can be then used in the transport sector wherever electrification is not possible. And this is in some of the transport areas it will be necessary to have these fuels, and this opens also opportunity for those countries which have low cost of renewables, so a high share of solar and wind in the future. Countries in Latin America and Africa and also Southeast Asia to get into the market for decarbonizing fuels. We will need these fuels, especially for aviation and maritime transport, where we don't see electrification as an option. Currently, we have a core option for light-duty vehicles, for buses and rail, for direct use of electricity, and we have an ongoing debate what is the best option for decarbonizing the road transport, especially the road freight transport. We need also decarbonized trucks and an option for road freight, because all our scenarios show that no matter how much we would like to shift from road to rail, also for trucks, for freight, sorry, we will still have a high amount of goods which will be transported on the road. In Germany, this is about 2/3. Even if we do everything we can to shift as much as we can from the goods to the rail, it will remain 2/3 will be transported on the road, and only 1/3 can be transported on rail, which shows the high need for decarbonized fuels and decarbonizing also the road transport in the very near future, where trolley trucks are under discussion, but also the other technologies I was pointing out. A part of this, we will have a higher need and also but opportunities for linking the electricity sector with the transport sector, which will be beneficial for both sectors, because on the one hand, the electricity sector based on renewables will allow the transport sector to be feeded or fueled by renewable energies. I was pointing this out, that this is the most efficient way to decarbonize the transport fuels. And on the other hand, the transport sector with the batteries, with also gaseous and liquid fuels, will be a flexibility option for the energy sector, so that the electricity from renewables, which will not be plannable, as you know, it will fluctuate over the days and over the year, so that the transport sector can also work as a storage system for the electricity system, while we increase the share of renewables. So that means that both sectors will have high benefits for the decarbonizing of the transport sector. I will just stress one additional issue before I come to end, that a part of what I already mentioned, the transformation of the transport sector also means that in the future, not only in cities but also on the national level, the decarbonization and the challenges of decarbonization would also mean that we have to redesign our planning of infrastructure and also the financing of infrastructure. For Germany, this means we have to get rid of some, subsidies, fuel subsidies, which we already or still have, which will work against this transformation and will make the transformation not fast enough, but even more costly. And we also have to see that currently the financing of our infrastructure in Germany is based on the energy tax in the transport sector, the mineral oil tax, which we have to get rid of in the future, and we have to base the finance of the transport system and the transport infrastructure on a road charging for all the vehicles, be it passenger vehicle or freight vehicles, which has already been agreed in the German context, but not implemented, so we need more and more implementation. And from our perspective, it's not only the climate change and the need for decarbonization which will drive this comprehensive transformation of the transport sector, but it will also be the high amount of co-benefits which we will see. On a national level, we will see that we will have less expensive for our health system, high savings for the expenses for the health due to more active mobility and due to less emissions in the urban transport and in the urban air quality. We will see high benefits on a city level. As I already mentioned, they will be the winner of the mobility revolution. We will also see high benefits on the company level because they can address the new markets and they can also reduce or plan this transformation better than being overrun by the development which we'll see in the next years. And on the individual level, we will also see benefits due to the fact that the transformation or the transport, the mobility will be more efficient and even more convenient than it is today. What we also see is that, or maybe it's also clear for you that this cannot be done only by one ministry or by one stakeholder group. It needs this cooperation, and this is why also we see the high participation in the Agora in Germany, that transformation of the transport sector is a joint effort which needs the inclusion of all the stakeholders forming a compact for this transformation. And as I mentioned, this is not only the case on national level, but also needed on international level, and that's why we are happy to cooperate especially with the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development and GIZ, because the increasing pressure on urban transport as one of the core areas for this mobility revolution are the emerging markets and developing countries, which will drive innovation, which also is something we can learn in the developed world from. So this will be, an exchange and a cooperation which will be beneficial for the developed world, but also for the emerging economies and developing countries. We can also, by exchanging the strategies and mutual learning, reduce the cost of the transformation of the transport sector and increase the benefits which this transformation has. So even there, we will be very optimistic that international cooperation is very much needed, but also a no-brainer in the future, and we will see more and more cooperation. And thereby, I would like to thank you very much for the attention, and looking forward to your question or comments to further discuss needs, challenges, but also opportunities for the transforming transportation in the future. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Christian, for your in-depth review of the way that we just have ahead of us. I would now open the floor for our audience to raise their questions by using the chat function. And yes, so please feel free to ask Ms. Vorwerk or Christian Hochfeld any question you would like. I will gather them in the chat function here and then address them to the two. While we are yet waiting for some questions, I have one coming up that is maybe not directly relating to the transport transformation, but of course this question is deeply linked with it, how we actually can ensure enough renewable energy in winter times, or let's say it, how we can ensure enough renewable energy at times with less sun, with less warmth and so on, and what implications that has for the transport sector. So Christian, that would be probably something related that you could answer.
Yeah, definitely I can. I already tried to indicate that we have several options to turn electricity based on renewables into fuel, be it using it directly via a battery as a storage, or store this energy, this renewable energy, in new fuels, this power to liquid, power to gas, which will be then also be, or this enables us to store this energy not only over a couple of hours, but also days, weeks, and months. So that will definitely help us, this combination of using the electricity from renewables directly with batteries, which is the most efficient way, and on the other hand having biofuels, advanced biofuels, and this power to liquid, power to gas, this synthetic fuels on the other hand, which can be stored over longer times, also to bridge those periods where we might have a bottleneck for the generation of renewable electricity from solar and wind.
Yes, so now, thank you, Christian. Now, more and more questions are coming in. They are popping up very quickly, so let's see how many of them we will be actually able to answer. Yeah, I would overjump one question that is to whether air transport is included in the Verkehrswende in Germany. I think that is something that is rather has to be tackled at a global level. So as Christian just had outlined it in his previous question, that in areas where we have a waste amount of wind and sun, we can store energy, we can eventually produce liquid fuels, which then can be used in the air transport. And so I would jump over that question and rather move on to the next one. And that is, how do you see the potential for the implementation of coast-free electric and hydrogen fuel-based vehicles in already starved energy sector of developing countries? So that's linking to the production capacity of energy in developing countries.
Well, I tried to indicate that especially in countries where we have a scarcity of electricity currently, and a scarcity of electricity coming from renewables, that especially in those countries, I think we should definitely focus on the most efficient way to transform this energy into transport energy by using this electricity directly in battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles, which are the most efficient way to fuel vehicles on a renewable base. The second option is definitely, and the second most efficient option is doing this with hydrogen, which can also store the energy for a longer time. But currently we see that this comes to a very high cost compared to the direct use of electricity. The direct use of electricity is more cost efficient by factor 2 to the use of the hydrogen fueled cars or vehicles, and it is also less energy efficient. And currently we don't see that there is a high cost reduction, especially on the vehicle side, on the fuel cells, that this difference will come down. So we cannot really be sure if hydrogen will play a major role and a bigger role in the future, due to the fact that we are, unable to predict the learning curves and the reduced costs for the fuel cells in the vehicles. So that is definitely an option if we talk about, priorities over time, which will come later than the direct electrification of transport, that maybe after 2030 or beyond, we will see a higher share of vehicles fueled by hydrogen, because on the other hand, it also needs an additional infrastructure for hydrogen, which can also, or which will also increase the costs of this decarbonization option. So there are a couple of more challenges, bigger challenges compared to the direct use of electricity. That's why it will be an option later and after direct electrification.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I have one question that is quite interesting, and might be answered maybe by Ms. Vorwerk, and eventually Christian has also some insights into that, because from the perspective of the least developed countries, there's here a question from Liberia coming: what can be an option for sustainable transport? For example, in Liberia there is no official public transport, therefore the middle and upper class uses private cars only. How to change the tendency by scooters, hybrid cars, or what are the options in the situation of lacking infrastructure? So what can we do in countries where we not have such a comfortable start as in Germany?
Okay, so probably can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you very well.
I'd like to give a very short answer because I have to go to the next meeting now. Well, to be honest, and I've been several times in Liberia, it can only be a very slow development. And in terms of infrastructure, we have to build up this at the same time with providing people with bikes, for example. And to be honest, it will take some time until these countries will come to a kind of public transport system. But the very important thing is from the very beginning that in the planning phase, the vision of a sustainable mobility system should be in the center of everything which is done. So this has to mean that we have to overcome a planning which is mainly based on the cars, even if the situation in Liberia at the moment is a mixture of cars and walking. But from the very beginning, there must be a vision of a sustainable transport system. Thank you. So I have to go. Goodbye.
Yes, thank you very much for your attendance and your input today. Have a good day, Ms. Vorwerk. So, Christian, we have about 3 minutes left. I would raise one more question to you, and then we will take up the other questions and also, I think, answer them via mail. I think we will make that possible. This question comes actually from your home, from your previous home field, from Beijing, and the questions are: why will we have 2/3 of freight transport still on the road in Germany, and is that a general assumption? So is there no plan anymore to shift further freight on rail? And yes, so that would be the question.
Mm-hmm. I think the answer is that this assumption that we put about 1/3 on rail would already mean doubling the share of freight on rail in Germany in the next 15 years. And this is already very ambitious to reach, or to double this share, as we have to also build the capacities and extend the railway network in this time. So that is why we have the limitation on bringing more freight and goods to the rail, because we will see an increase in general by, let's say, 30% at minimum of freight transport, and we have no more capacities to put more freight or goods on the rail already, or even if we extend the railway network. So this is the reason why we cannot bring more than the share of 1/3 on the rail. But there are hardly any other countries, maybe there's Switzerland, Sweden, and Great Britain, which have a higher share of freight on rail. You can maybe extend it to 40%, but there is a limitation due to the requested flexibility also for freight transport and goods transport, and in this sense you also have to transport it by trucks. So we have a limitation for freight on rail, no matter how fast and how much we extend the railway network.
Okay, thank you very much, Christian. Maybe one last question relating to your activities of Agora Verkehrswende. So your mandate is very much connected to Germany, but do you plan particular activities in the field of development cooperation, so on projects worldwide beyond the German border?
that depends on our cooperation with BMZ and also with GIZ, as we will not directly go into international cooperation, but we are very happy to cooperate and to share the knowledge and our work which we do in Germany with other countries, but also maybe share some of the experiences and expertise we have by building up similar platforms in other countries, which definitely is something which is needed if we talk about decarbonizing and transforming transportation, because the reason why Agora has been formed was that this initiative could not have been taken up by any one ministry or single ministry, because then it will definitely have an impact how the other ministries and stakeholder and shareholder groups cooperate. So as we see it as a joint effort to decarbonize and transform transportation, such platforms play a major role, and this governance structure of these platforms can really help to form a robust and comprehensive strategy for the transformation of the transport sector. And if this initiative or this knowledge will also be needed in other countries, we are very happy to share our experiences and support and help with setting up such platforms in other countries, if the other countries would also be interested in something like this.
So Christian, thank you very much. This was very in-depth sharing of the perspective of the transport transformation in Germany, and we are happy to cooperate with you further. Beijing has just stated that they are very happy with the webinar, and also thank you very much. We will see us soon, and I will have a small commercial part to finish with our webinar today. So if you liked the event today, or you still found that we talked too much yet about policy today, the next time it will get more practical. So the topic on May 23rd will be how local and global agendas on health and road safety can become reality by better design and urban planning and road planning on the ground. So all of you will receive an invitation email soon. Further, I would recommend you to watch out on the webpage of the Agora Verkehrswende for the publication of their 12th thesis on the transport transformation in Germany. That's a very interesting, or that's a very exciting literature. I just started reading the German version, and I also recommend you to look into the materials of BMZ and their strategic brochure on urban mobility, and in the handout section of the software you also find a flyer of the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative. From the Sustainable Urban Transport Project, we have a number of publications that is directly linked to questions of the transport transformation, more recent publications on electric mobility, but also further on the cross-section of energy efficiency, climate change, and transport. And further, we have our materials on transport demand management. So there we can comprehensively see the different options for reducing transport demand and for changing it towards more efficient fuels and vehicles. And we're also happy to announce that our poster 10 Principles for Sustainable Urban Transport, which was also an initiative by our GIZ colleagues in China once, is now available in about 19 languages, and we also have another poster on road safety. Further, if you're interested in other events on sustainable transport, summer schools, university courses, but e-learning formats, and others, recommend you also to visit Capsut. That's a capacity building platform on capsut.org. And of course, you will find a number of other materials like a Flickr channel that we run with the SUTP project. And you're also welcome to visit us on Facebook and Flickr. So thank you very much again, Ms. Vorwerk and Christian, as well as to Alexander Jung and Daniel Günther from BMZ and the Agora Verkehrswende for supporting the preparation of this webinar, and of course also to my colleagues here at GIZ, in particular Dimitrios Tanos. So thank you very much. I would like to ask you, when you now exit the webinar software, there will pop up a small survey with 4 very short questions. So in the case you would like to tell us anything, please feel free to use this, and we will, as always, post the recording and the presentation very soon on capsut.org. So goodbye to everyone. Christian, you tried to say something?
No, I just can only add thank you very much also from my side, and hope to see you soon or talk to you soon. Goodbye.
All right. So all the best from Bonn, Berlin, and Eschborn near Frankfurt. Have a good day.